really good reasons to invest in Element 29. I would say the first and most important one is we have such a well established portfolio of highly prospective early to advanced stage copper projects in Peru, which, as you know, is one of the top mining jurisdictions globally. Within that portfolio, we have 4 porphyry copper projects for about 25,000 hectares of titled concessions that are essentially 100% owned by Element 29. Our real focus is on building tier 1, copper projects in a world-class mining jurisdiction. That's really hard to do, right? I mean, it takes about a mining cycle to build a portfolio like that. You just can't go out and find them. So, I mean, a lot of the ground that we actually picked up was dropped and acquired through like the downturns back in the 2015, 2016, 17 kind of thing. Then we integrated that into Element 29, and within that we also have a fairly sizable discovery, which is our flagship project, Elida, which sort of sits in west central Peru. It's about 150 kilometers south of Antamina, which is like the 7th largest copper producing mine in the world, right? The project itself has about a cluster of about 5 targets in a hydrothermal alteration footprint for a porphyry target of about 2.5 kilometers by 2.5 kilometers. To date, we've drilled about 16,000 meters on the project. And in 2022, we put out a pit-constrained inferred mineral resource estimate. We outlined very early stage 321.7 million tons of 0.32 copper, 0.03 molybdenum, which we call moly, and 2.61 grams per ton silver. This resource is open pittable, it's pit constrained, and mineralization actually outcrops at bedrock surface. And within that, we think we've outlined a starter pit that's at the moment 60 million tons of 0.5% copper plus 0.4 moly and 4 grams per ton silver. And we think we can expand that significantly. We also have 3 other projects in Peru, porphyry copper projects, mostly in southern Peru. They have large hydrothermal footprints, again, with tier 1 discovery potential. And our Florida Cobre project, which we think is our second highest priority target, is a large porphyry target that's about 26 kilometers south of Cerro Verde, which I think is the 3rd largest mine in the world. We also have a very tight share structure. You know, we have about 120 million shares issued, and we have some very supportive shareholders. We have RCF, which is a private equity group involved. We also have Acasa Partners out of the UK, and management controls about 7% of the equity, and then our remaining float is very tightly held as well. We also have a very strong board and management. The board's led by Brad Mercer, who's the retired chief operating officer for Capstone Mining. And he basically helped build that company from about a $20 million market cap to like over $5 billion, so lots of experience. Manuel Montoya, who's their chief technical officer and country manager. He's one of the founders of the company. He's been involved in exploration and discoveries in Peru. He's Peruvian, and he initially worked in the oil and gas sector, and then started working for Teck Cominco, and building his experience exploring for base metals, and particularly porphyry copper deposits throughout the Americas. He was actually involved in the discovery of Zafranal, which is now a Teck Mitsubishi project that just got permitted to develop. Very strong team overall. And I mean, one of the things we're really proud of is that, as a copper-molybdenum explorer, we're really on the front end of the critical mineral supply chain, which is really supporting that green energy transition, right? I started my career as a geoscientist, mostly focused on nickel. I worked in the early part of my career at Voisey's Bay, which is Vale's large nickel mine in northern Labrador. Spent a lot of time drilling off the Voisey's Bay deposit and doing a lot of regional exploration, and certainly generated a lot of resources and tonnage for Robert Friedland, who was the owner of the deposit at the time through Diamond Fields, which then got sold to Inco. So that was a really good experience. I learned a lot about exploration during that period. And from there, I actually got hired to work with Glencore, at the time Falconbridge at Raglan, which is another large mine in northern Quebec. And we did a little bit different exploration. We did a lot of near mine exploration and resource expansion work and looking to make new discoveries in that belt. We had a lot of success as well, and continued to replace what was being mined and also continued to expand that resource base, right? From there, I got hired away with Anglo American to work out of Vancouver, and I was focused mostly on nickel. And I was the chief technical lead, I guess, involved with nickel in northern Canada and Europe, and then copper in Mexico and Alaska. Eventually, I resigned from Anglo and started a private generative company called Globetrotters Resource Group in 2010, and we spent about 7 years building the Element 29 portfolio. As I mentioned, you pretty much got to do it through a mining cycle to get access to the quality projects that you need to be able to build, a portfolio of with potential tier 1 discoveries in a jurisdiction like Peru. It's just so heavily, staked, and the ground is controlled, and the ground doesn't come open very, very freely, very easily. And in 2018, we spun out Element 29 from that portfolio, and we got it listed in 2020. So I know the projects, and I know Peru, and I have experience in the junior resource sector. So I think I feel comfortable that we're going to be able to work really hard to try and make this a success. With Globetrotters, we looked at where can we go in the world to explore. And the most important risk associated with exploration is really geological risk or in-ground risk. So if you're looking for world-class copper deposits, you go to world-class mining jurisdictions, right? And Peru is definitely a world-class mining jurisdiction. It's the second largest copper producer in the world, sometimes third. It competes with the Congo. But my experience, I think Peru is a much more stable jurisdiction. It's the second largest copper producer globally. As I mentioned, it produces about 2.5 million tons of copper per year. It's a low-cost operating jurisdiction as well. It's about $1.70 to $1.80 per pound of copper to produce in Peru, which is similar to Chile. And in Canada, you're looking at probably closer to $2.50 per pound. So, very low cost still to operate there. Mines get permitted. One of the great things also is that Peru has a free trade agreement with Canada and the US, as well as a bilateral investment treaty in place. So what that means is that you don't have things like double taxation. And if a big company like BHP or Anglo decide to build a mine in Peru, then their investment is protected. And if the government decides to take away the project or the concessions, then they can go to international arbitration court outside of the country to essentially try and get back their investment. So all those things make Peru a very, very stable jurisdiction to work. And you hear lots of white noise every time there's an election, but I mean, mining makes up about 60% of Peru's exports and about 10% of their GDP, right? So it's not something that they're going to be able to, it'll be very difficult to nationalize because they just need so much foreign investment to develop these large mines. And what's really good is big mining companies like Anglo and BHP are willing to invest in Peru because of that. Elida is a great project. It was discovered by Globetrotters. As I mentioned, it sits about 150 kilometers south of Antamina. There's loads of potential to expand on resources and also increase grade and make new discoveries. The resource, we have 321 million tons of resources already on very little drilling. The copper mineralization itself is open laterally and at depth. For example, one of the holes we drilled in, I think it was the last campaign, was hole 25. It had 909 meters of over 0.5% copper equivalent grade, and the hole ended in strong mineralization kind of thing, right? So we think the mineralization extends down, close to a kilometer or more, and is wide open laterally to the east and west as well. So there's real good potential for a tier one discovery there. We think it's actually, becoming a strategic asset. Some of the things that really make a difference are like for cost wise are like low elevation, it's 1,600 meters elevation. It's got road access kind of thing, right? You can drive right to the project. It's close to deep water ports, for example. So it's about 150 kilometers to the Antamina port. And it's also 150 kilometers to the new Chancay megaport that's being put in by Costco and funded through that company in partnership with Peru. You can basically drive to both without having to put in the infrastructure to develop a pipeline to move ore to the coast and things like that. So it makes for a low cost operation. Also, there's a clean energy hydro station about 15 kilometers away that we can tap into. And also the ore that we've outlined so far is very low in arsenic. That's become a big issue. A lot of the deposits that are being discovered these days are, tend to be potentially developing a little bit more of a dirtier concentrate that has a lot of arsenic in it. If you have like over 0.5% arsenic in your concentrate, then most smelters around the world won't take it. Elida is actually quite clean. We don't expect to have any arsenic in the con, which then likely allows it to be sold at a premium, which is very strategic. And we think that we can continue to grow this resource and hopefully get it to a tier one level. Lots of exciting news expected to come out. We just started our phase 3 drill program at Elida. Hole 33, which we're currently drilling, it's still an overburden, but it's the following up of the last hole drilled on a project that was shut down for operational reasons. That hole drilled within the pit, but it outlined existing pit shell, but it outlined like 404.5 meters of 0.45 copper, 0.032 molybdenum, and 3.6 grams per ton silver for about a 0.55 copper equivalent grade. But the last 13 meters of the hole ran like 0.75% copper, 0.032 moly, and 7.2 grams per ton silver for about a 0.87 copper equivalent grade. So we're just going to continue that hole. We're stepping out to the west a little bit more to infill within the pit, but we're going to essentially let that hole run down to like a kilometer plus to really see how well the mineralization continues, the copper mineralization continues down at depth. That can really show potential to significantly expand on our existing resource base, right? We're also looking to do some metallurgical test work on Elida to try and understand what the recoveries will be. And we're also going to start permitting some of our other projects like our PACA project, where we've got community support to be able to go in and do the baseline study work to start moving that project into the pipeline as well. So lots of catalysts for this year. Element 29 has put a lot of work into building this portfolio. You can't build a portfolio like this overnight. It takes time. You need a mine cycle. You can't just go out and find these kind of projects. These are world-class assets in a world-class mining jurisdiction with tier one discovery potential. So, that's exciting. We've really only tested one of our 4 projects. We've got over 25,000 hectares of ground that we still have to explore. And, we have projects that are sitting right next to some of the largest mines in the world, copper mines in the world. So we're pretty excited, and, we're going to have lots of news flow coming out from our projects. And, we're hoping that we can continue to grow our resource base and make some new significant tier one discoveries.